guys, it's Stephanie with Simarchy, and welcome to the Sims 4 speed build of the Rainbow Tiny Living community. Now, I have been on such a tiny house kick lately, it's insane. All I want to do is build tiny houses and build multiple tiny houses on one lot. They are so much fun. I feel like they're more of a challenge, but I feel like I could get way more creative with placement and figuring out how items go together. It's almost like a puzzle piece just waiting to be put together. So hence why there are so many tiny living videos on this channel now. I think if I haven't already, I'm going to create a whole separate playlist just for tiny houses and tiny challenges. So keep an eye for that. Keep an eye out for that. If that's already created, there will be a link in the description to check that out. The whole kick started basically, oh my gosh, before this channel even started, because I love tiny homes. I love watching TV shows about tiny homes. I love watching house tours of tiny homes on YouTube. I love houseboats. I love campers and trailers. I've just always been obsessed with them. I don't know why. I don't know how to explain it, because part of me really likes this minimalistic type of life, and another part of me really likes big, grand mansions on the beach with hot tubs and pools and all sorts of cool stuff. Movie theaters. I don't know. It's such a contradiction. Like, the things I like are so polar opposites. It's not even funny. But honestly, I'd probably be happier living in a little tiny home. Something that's completely paid off, that I don't have to worry about, in my own little community, maybe grow my own food. Let's face it, I'm probably too lazy for that part, considering I won't even cook for myself. But yeah, just like the idea of it, and just paring down all of your possessions to just the necessities, just what you need. I don't know, there's something about it that's super intriguing. As a matter of fact, I kind of did this about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I just sold pretty much everything that I owned, and part of it was I needed money at the time, and the other part was I was sick of moving and bringing so much stuff with me. I've literally moved almost every single year of my life since I've been maybe around 16 years old. So I guess we'll do a little backstory here, and then I'll kind of cut into talking about this awesome rainbow community the more we get into it. But story time! All right, so I basically lived in a couple of different houses from the time I was born till the time I was about 15. Then my whole family and I moved from the inner city of Cleveland to the suburbs of Akron, I guess. I don't know. Akron's a big city too, so that doesn't really make sense. But yeah, about 45 minutes north of Cleveland is where we ended up moving. And we actually lived in a trailer park. And it wasn't like a rundown, crappy trailer park. As a matter of fact, at the time, it was the 5th best trailer park in the entire state of Ohio. Or at least that's what they told us. And all the houses looked the same. I mean, they were tiny little homes, pretty much like these. Some of them were double wides. Some of them had like extensions built onto them, but they all look the same. They had the same lawn, the same little mailbox. Everything was just pretty much the same. And I remember getting so lost and so confused because I could not find my way home from school. I couldn't tell which one was mine and which one was the neighbor's. Like, it took me a couple of weeks, maybe even a month, to really realize, like, okay, this one's mine. The whole concept was just completely foreign to me, because when I lived in Cleveland, all the houses looked different. Like, every single one looked different. Every mailbox was different. Every trash can was different. Like, nothing was conforming. So it was kind of weird, but it was also kind of cool. But yeah, it was like a 70s style camper mobile home, that's what they were called. It was 70s style. So we had like the shag type carpet and like the banana bar in the kitchen. We had an 8-track player, and it played in every single room. There were speakers in every single room of the house. So like, that's how retro it was. But anyways, that's kind of getting a little bit away from the story I was trying to tell. So I basically lived there for, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years. Like, my timing is really bad in my head, but let's just say 3 years. Okay. Then I don't even know exactly what happened when, but I lived at my grandma's for a little bit. I lived with my boyfriend for a little bit. I lived in my own apartment for a little bit. Basically, I just moved a lot. Like, pretty much every year I moved. And the only time after that I had a stable place was 2 years. Yeah, I consider that stable, was when I bought my house in Ohio. And I ended up living there for only 2 years, which, yes, I know is a super short period of time, but that was pretty much my stability there. And then I decided I wanted to move to Florida because I was tired of the cold and the snow, and I was desperate for a change, and I wanted to live on the beach. So I took my mom, and we literally just moved to Florida. So once we got to Florida, of course, we moved around a little tiny bit, just from hotel to hotel, trying to figure out what our game plan was, because we had none. We moved here almost sight unseen, but like we had come here one time, no jobs, no place to live, just literally stayed in hotels until we found a place. And then we ended up finding a beach condo, and the ad in the paper almost seemed like a scam, like it was too good to be true, like it wasn't real, but it was a private condo on a private beach. I guess not a private condo, a bunch of condos on a private beach, and it was all utilities included, completely furnished, month to month, no contract, no deposit, no credit check, cats allowed. And I was just like, this is crazy, because I had 3 cats with me at the time. I was like, this is crazy. No way this is real. And ended up being real. It was little women from, I want to say Venezuela. I can't remember. I think that's where she was from. And she just owned a few condos there, and she would rent one out. And this was the off season. It just happened to be the off season. So she had the rent for literally less than half than she would normally rent the place for in the peak season. So she said, go ahead and move on in. You could stay for a couple months and we'll figure things out later. And she ended up liking us so much, she invited us to stay for the whole year without raising our rent to literally like over double what we were paying. So we loved it there. We ended up staying there for about a year. Literally about a year. And then my sister ended up moving from Ohio to Florida with us. And it was already a cramped space. It was already me and my mom staying in a 1-bedroom condo. So we decided to move to another apartment, which we did. We moved to another place with 3 bedrooms. So we each had our own bedroom. And then we were there for about a year. And my dad decided he wanted to move to Florida. So little by little, the whole family came, and there was no room for him at the apartment we were at because my parents were actually divorced at this time. Even though good friends and they still lived together, they were not going to share a room. They were divorced. They were not together anymore. So we actually needed 4 bedrooms. So we ended up staying there for an entire year and then ended up moving to a 4-bedroom house. So this house was really cool. We were all basically working at the time. We were able to afford this big, beautiful house with all these bedrooms and a hot tub and a converted garage that we put in a pool table and a bar. It was a game room. It was so cool. I really loved this house. We were there for about a year. I know. Can you get the theme, right? 1 year. And then my sister decided that her and her boyfriend were going to move out. So I was like, all right, well, we can't afford or do we need a place this big anymore? So my job at the time, I worked for a newspaper, wanted me or someone to move to Orlando to open up their new office. And we were in like St. Pete at the time, St. Pete, Tampa area. Orlando's about a good 2 hours away. So I volunteered to do it. So I picked up everything that I had in that big house, and me and my mom and dad, all 3 of us ended up moving to a 3-bedroom apartment in Orlando. And again, we only ended up staying there for about a year because once the office was open and I realized I missed living in the Clearwater, St. Petersburg area, I asked my boss to put in a transfer. And it happened that the girl that was working in my old office was going on maternity leave. So they said, yeah, you can go ahead and move back to your old office. So we did. So again, we moved after another year. So this is just a trend, just every single year I'm moving, every single year of my life. So we ended up staying at this apartment that I found, and my parents had decided to move back to Ohio together because they felt like they were being a burden on me because by this time, neither of them were working. Long story short, my dad had a few heart attacks and became disabled, and my mom was having problems at work, so she was technically disabled but not legally disabled. So neither of them were working, and they figured they would have more family and resources and stuff in Ohio. So they left me with my 1-bedroom dream apartment right on the beach, literally had an ocean view. I loved it so much. So after I planned on living there forever, guys, like I really did. But after a couple months, my dad sadly ended up having another heart attack in Ohio, and I completely freaked out. He thought he was dying. I thought he was dying. It turned out he kind of overreacted a bit. He was actually fine. But still, it was a scary enough situation that I told my parents, you guys have to move back. So they moved back in, and literally we all shared this 1-bedroom apartment and could tell pretty fast that wasn't going to work. So from there, we ended up moving into another 3-bedroom apartment after, you guessed it, a year. And this new apartment we actually ended up living at for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I believe. Sad story. I don't mean this to be a sad video, so I'll just kind of glaze over this pretty quickly. But my mom ended up being diagnosed with cancer and ended up passing away, sadly. I miss her dearly. She was my best friend. I miss her more than anything, but I don't want this to be a sad video, so we're going to move on. So my dad and I stayed there for a little bit, and by this time, I owned my clothing store for a few years. So it was in the general vicinity that we lived in, but I owned a second one in Tampa, which was about an hour away, which I would drive to every day. So, oh gosh, I don't want to make this video like a whole story about my life, so I'll kind of condense it. Anyways, a few things happened, and we ended up deciding to move to Tampa because that apartment, it was just too far from my main store that I was working at, so I didn't want to keep driving an hour a day, putting all these miles in my car. So we did end up staying there for about 3 years total, which again is probably the longest I've stayed anywhere, definitely the longest I've stayed anywhere since I was a child. And so we decided to move to Tampa. So we found this dream house. Okay, again, dream house, literally less than half a mile from my store. I was so excited. I could walk to work if I wanted. It was big. It was beautiful. It had 3 bedrooms, much more than we needed. We only needed 2, but I figured we could use the third as an office or something like that for myself or extra storage. So we decided to move there, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But guys, here's the kicker. I planned on living there forever. I really did. I was like, I'm never leaving. This is the perfect house. Not even a month or 2 that we had been living there, a friend of mine who was looking to buy a house in the area told me that this house had gone for sale. And I didn't believe him. I'm like, no, we just moved in. We just signed a 1-year lease. There's no way he put it on the market. The owner literally had just bought it. Why would he buy it to rent it out and then put it up for sale? Well, lo and behold, he was right. The owner decided he wanted to sell the house. He didn't want it anymore and tried to kick me out. And I was like, no, we have a lease. I talked to a lawyer. I got it all sorted out. Basically, they could not kick us out. But that year was hell because we had people and their real estate agents coming to tour the house because it was put up for sale. And the lease did say that he could have people tour the home, which I wish I had read it a little bit better and had the foresight to know that possibly he could put it on the market and this could be a possibility. So yeah, that was horrible. So you guessed it, after a year I had to leave. I had no choice. He kicked us out. So then I ended up finding another apartment, moving from a house to an apartment and downgrading. And that's kind of why this whole story started right now was I pretty much sold everything that I owned and ended up moving to a smaller apartment. I was just sick of moving and sick of taking all this stuff with me, all this furniture, all these boxes, all these things that didn't really mean much to me. So we just had like massive garage sales and just sold almost everything. And yeah, pretty much. The only thing I think we kept were the couches and maybe a couple boxes of stuff. Like we even bought new beds when we moved everything. So yeah, that, gosh, I didn't even expect to get into that story, but that I guess is the cool thing about these unscripted, unprompted videos where I just start talking and whatever happens. So I hope you enjoyed that little story time. But just to quickly wrap that part up, yes, I have been at my new apartment for over a year now. We just signed another year lease, so hopefully I'm not moving again for a very long time. But I will say, if I did have to move again, and God forbid something happened to my dad and it was just me, I would literally most likely buy a tiny home. I mean, I really would. I know they're very hard, going back to the premise of this build, they are very hard to find property to put them on, especially in Florida where I'm at. There's a lot of laws that try to prevent you from living in a tiny home and definitely from living off the grid. So that would be something to seriously consider. But I really wouldn't mind tiny living. I would love to live in a houseboat, even though that has its own set of problems. I think that would be amazing. Or even just having a tiny little efficiency apartment behind my store or on top of my store. I don't know. Like I said, it's always appealed to me. Just a little tiny place to call your own has always appealed to me. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I'm so obsessed with these tiny houses. And I just think they're so aesthetically pleasing. Being able to see what people can do with them, the tiny little kitchens they can make that are fully functional, and the tiny little bathrooms that double as a shower, like the whole bathroom doubles as a shower. These type of things are really cool from a building and a decorating aspect. So yeah, I'm just, I love them. I love them so much. So I guess it makes sense that I make them in The Sims for you guys to enjoy. So now that I've completely ignored this video this entire time, we are getting towards the end here, throwing in a little bit of landscaping, and then we'll jump into the actual tour of the community. I decided to make this one just very bright and colorful, rainbow, whimsical. I don't know. There's some keywords I'm throwing around right now, but yeah, it's definitely kitschy. I think kitschy and eccentric is the best way to describe this tiny home community. So as you saw throughout the speed build, there were four different little tiny homes. And well, I guess we're getting into the tour now. So we're starting off with the outside area, of course. You just saw a little picnic area with a grill. And then this is my favorite little corner, the cozy hot tub. You've got a towel on one side and a little candle and flower pot on the other. There we have Miss Nancy Landgrab, I believe, walking into her tiny home. I pretty much just kidnapped some Sims around town and moved them into here. To the left, we have the beautiful pool, which I will give you more of a close-up in a second. And then to the right, we have another Sim. Sorry, I don't know her name. Like I said, I just kidnapped her and moved her in here. So here she is reading a book on this colorful little graffiti bench. I don't know. This place is quirky and weird. Like I said, very eccentric, very whimsical and kitschy, and just, well, they are growing their own plants. I didn't realize some of these were alien plants when I planted them. So yeah, you're going to have some weird plants growing here. So anyways, here's a better shot of the pool. And oh my gosh, I could not believe there are not lounge chairs in The Sims 4. Like unless I am just completely clueless, I could not find them. So we have some little chairs instead. All right, now we're about to head into the first little tiny home, and this is the one that I call the yellow one. I don't know why I called it yellow, but in my description, I called it the yellow home. So this is the smallest of the four. We have a tiny little bed fit for a rock star on the left, and now we're looking at the kitchen, complete with a pink fridge, and getting a little peek into this tiny bathroom with a shower and a toilet. There is no sink because they can use the sink in the kitchen. Good enough. Good enough. All right, so now we're about to head into house number 2, which I am calling appropriately the purple home. So inside is anything but purple. We have a tiny little galley style kitchen, lots of reds, oranges, and greens in this one, and our little mini living room. Now you'll notice there's no TV. However, there is one above the bed that you can't really see, but if you look up in that tiny corner, you can. So there's my Sim who lives here, and a random one sitting on the bed chatting. Can't remember his name either. And there's a peek into the tiny bathroom. I forgot who I put in what house. I don't remember, but I know for sure this is Nancy Landgrab's house. And honestly, can you imagine her living in a tiny home? But if she did, I imagine it would be this one, because it is pretty modern, very luxurious in here. And gosh, I just walked right through her. We have her little tiny kitchen, stainless steel, all the modern appliances, even a fancy fridge where you can see right inside. And then her 3-piece bathroom with a shower, toilet, and sink. And yeah, she has that little TV in that corner as well. Now this is the pink house, which is for my Sim self, Stephanie Simarchy. She lives here. And of course, lots of pastel colors, because I love pastel colors. We have the little penguin TV. We have the bed pushed right up on this dirty little rundown kitchen, and a bunny door leading into the bathroom, toilet, and shower. Again, she will have to use the sink. I will have to use the sink. So there I am running around, and here's a better shot of the pool. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss my next video, and I will see you next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!